So this will be the next part of the rigging of the legs. Now we're going to start with the stilts, but first we're going to clean up the scene that we have right now. So let's get the foot controls and just parent them to the master. Same with the pole vectors, parent them to the masters. And then we go and lock and hide all the stuff that we don't need. So like the pole vectors will only be translatable, the rest can be locked. The foot can be translated and rotated, so scale and visibility can be locked. We can only rotate the foot roll. Same with the ankle. And let's clean the root control as well. So now we have a clean scene. We can also start giving a color. Yellow to the center. I prefer blue to the left and red to the right. Just as a start, and then we can select, just do a drag select, so you select all IK handles and we can hide them. So that should be the clean version of the legs. Now we can hide the right hip and left hip, and we can unhide the right and left stilt. We can also go in and hide everything we just created, but just leave the pole vectors there because we're going to use them for the stilts as well. So in this case we want to control the stilts in such a way that we have just a single controller down below, just like we have with the foot. But then we're going to add some controls to control the bending of the stilt itself. As you can see here, when I go into the stilt, it's this one. Let's unhide the stilts here. So we have a single control to move everything. We still have the pole vector, which is the same as we used last time. And then we have a squash, a stretch controls for the stilts itself. So let's get in and create those. So let's start off with creating a control or a joint that goes from bottom to top, which is going to be the guide for all the controls for squash and stretch. And we just do that with creating a joint chain, begin to end. Let's just make it a little bit, it's already big enough so I don't have to change the radius. Let's add a rotate plane solver, and let's use the pole vector for the pole vector constraint, and just delete the IK handle. So we now have the Z pointing forward, so we just rotate 90 degrees. So we have the stilt in the same fashion as we did with everything else. Let's just rename this to stilt guide. And then we can create, or just mirror this over. I have to select it first. So we mirrored it over. And let's get a nice controller for the foot here as well. Let's go for something different than the foot. I'll just use a circle with a pointer. So this is the left stilt control. Call it the same with group. Group it, duplicate it, send it to the other side. Unparent. Let's first rename everything. Unparent them and delete the groups. So these are going to be the movers for the entire controls. And we can already parent the stilt guide to the stilt control. And then again, we're going to add the rotate plane solver from start to end, and for the other side as well. Let's try it again. So, left stilt guide IK. And these two can be parented to the pelvis. So when we move the controller, they will always aim towards the hip position. And let's just use the pole vector constraint to make sure that they are locked in this position. Let's see. It looks like the one on the left is correct, the one on the right isn't. So you just have to twist it 90 degrees, so we know for sure that everything that's created has the same orientation. Let's see if it works. Check with the local rotation axis, rotate it. As you can see, this also nicely rotates with it. Now let's create something to move the stilts with. I think I'll go for cross control. Scale it down a little bit. Freeze transform, group it. And we want it to point in the X direction, so we can group or rotate it already. And then freeze transform, and now when we have the group, it's pointing towards the X direction. And now we can just select the group, select the joint, press parent, and set the translates and rotates on 0. So it starts at the beginning of the stilt. Duplicate it again, move it a bit up, snap it to the position where we have the joint here. And then we do the same for the other side. So let's see, we have 1, 2, and 3. Parented to this joint. Remove rotations. And snap up here. Now let's give the controls a name. Got the prefix, so I'll just prefix hierarchy names. Do the same on the other side. Modify prefix. I use R underscore, and that should be okay. So now we're going to add IK handles, which is in this case the rotate plane solver. Let's extend the stilts. So it's 1, 2, 3, and that's the last one. So now everything has a nice IK handle. We can close this, and then we can use the IK handles, or the pole vectors for the IK handles for vector constraint. Do it on both sides, and we need to flip the lower ones because they're pointing towards the wrong direction. And then we can parent the IK handles to the controllers. So now when we move this, the part of the stilt stays nicely in its position until we stretch it out. And now to clean this up, we only want to be able to translate these controls. So that's going to be only an X. Lock and hide the rest. And for these controls we can only translate them. Rotations doesn't do anything. So those are the stilts. And now we're going to try and blend the legs from one position to the other. And to do that, let's unhide the hips. We need to have the same exact joints that we have here in place of the stilts. So let's grab the left hip, the right hip, duplicate these, and then call the previous ones. We add the prefix. Let's say IK underscore. For these, let's make it stilt underscore. And let's just add. Oh, I prefixed the wrong one. Let's clean it up. So IK hip, this one. Modify prefix. It's IK underscore. Those are correct. IK hip. Duplicate these as well. And let's just remove all the IK objects from this one, as we're going to use these for the skinning later on. So now we have 3 identical chains, which we are going to use to blend together. Let's hide the ones we use for skinning now. Let's hide everything we use for the normal IK. And then we're going to use the stilts to drive the stilts, hip and knee. So let's go to left stilt. Left stilt hip. We're going to do a point constraint and an orient constraint. Stilt 1, we're going to do a point constraint as well, but the orient is going to be with offset. And then for the other one, we're going to do a point constraint and an orient without offset, a point constraint, and an orient with offset. So now when we move the controls, you can see that the leg stays in the correct position. And when we rotate the ball vector, everything works correct. So now we're going to hide the stilts. We unhide the IK and the skinned variance. Let's start with left. Like that. And from the control creator, we're going to use the slider control. These are just 3 curves that have a predefined shape, just parented together, which we can use as a visible slider. First off, let's place the slider somewhere where we can easily reach it. As you can see, the slider goes from -2 to +2. Let's make sure that the minus is on the left. So we have to scale it to -1. So when we place it to -2, this is going to be our base value. So we freeze transform it here. So we have a value going from 0 to 1. And in this case, I want to make sure that the slider is as long as 0 to 1. So let's make sure that we set this one to 1. And then we move the object all the way so the slider has the length of 1. Scale it a bit down. So it looks nice. Okay, and then we go into the attribute editor, limit information, and then we're going to limit the translation of x to be the maximum of 1 and a minimum of 0, so we can only slide in between these values. And then for the rest, we're just going to lock and hide all the other objects. So now we can't move the slider outside of its bounding box. Just duplicate this curve, paste it to the other side, and it should have the same values. So now when we go and check the left hip, we're going to go back into the node editor. Let's close the tab so we have a clean one, and then add all the values we have. Select the slider, add it as well. So we have the skin hip, we have the stilt hip, and we have the IK hip. The order that we have these now is going to matter. So if we expand them, we have the translate X is going to be our slider. We have the rotate of this one and the rotate of this one. Let's keep it here. And then we're going to use the blend colors. To rotate from color 1, which is going to be the IKL hip, to rotate to the stilt, and the one that's getting the rotations will be the left hip. And the way we're gonna blend this is through translate X. So if I move this away, and so you can see left hip is now using the rotation of the stilt, and if I move it out of the way, you can see it blends towards the IK version of the leg. So this is what we're going to do for all the joints that we have here. So the left hip, left knee, calf, ankle and ball. So I get the node editor back. Middle mouse drag the knee in there from this one and from this one. Expand the nodes. Gotta blend colors in. And if you do it like this, just dragging all the nodes in, you can see where the connection comes from the parent. So it's really easy to make sure that everything works. Just grab the blender from the previous blend colors, rotate, rotate, and then the output in the new rotate, and check if it works. Okay, and now I'm going to pause the video and do all the other joints for the calf, ankle, ball, and for the other side as well. So now I made sure that both legs have the blend option working. So if I make sure that this one moves, select the slider and it blends in between. Let's make sure that we hide the joints we don't need. And then we can select the foot control, move it away. You can see how they blend nicely from one to the other. Let's see that I didn't properly lock and hide channels here. So let's do a thorough cleanup here as well. Select the controls from here and make them blue. Select the controls here and make them red. We can select the box of the controls, press arrow down so we can go to the shape, go to display, object display, template. So we can select the box here. And for the warning sign, I first want to use the slider so that when you're halfway in sliding mode, the warning pops up. But if it's all the way till the end, it doesn't have to pop up. So let's go to animation, key, set driven key, set. Make sure that we add this to the shelf so we don't have to go to the animation work set every time. Go back to the rigging part and do set driven key. So we load this part as the driver and then the warning sign as the driven, and we want to key the visibility. So in this case we want to key the visibility when he just pops out of, when it's not exactly 0 anymore. So then we key visibility on, but when it is actually 0 we want to hide the warning sign. So then we key the visibility off when the translate is 0. And what happens now is if we overshoot or move it a little bit, the warning sign comes into place. So we do the same for the end. It's 0.999. Key the visibility, and then when it's entirely 1, hide it and key it again. So now we have a warning sign that pops up when the blend is not exactly 100%. Then we can select the warning sign, which is in the display, and then we have the drawing overrides, enable override display type on reference. So now it's black and you can't select it. So whenever an animator needs to blend, you can just drag select and blend in between. And let's do the same for this one. We load the driver, load the driven, translate X visibility, set to 0.001, key, let's also do 0.999, key, move it all the way, hide it, key, hide it, and key. So now this also blends nicely. Select the warning sign, and override, set it to reference. Then we can connect this to the joints as well. So we expand the joints that we have here. Let's create a locator and another locator. So we have two in place. Select the curve we have, do a point constraint on the locator, delete the point constraint. For the same we do for the toe to the other locator, constraint, point constraint, delete the point constraint, and parent these guys. So the one that's near the slider is the child of the parent that's the part of the toe. Let's name the slider properly as well. So left leg blender box, control, warning, and these are the locations. And the positioners. So we use the leg blender locator to select the leg blender box, constraint, and do a point constraint. So whatever we do, it will stay in the same place. And we do the same from the toe to the blender position, constraint, point. So wherever this one's moved, the blender is always out of the way and always still straight. Same for the other side. Create two locators. Give them the name. So from the toe to the position, from the box to the locator, delete the point constraint on the locator, parent it to the position, and then from this locator we point constrain the box. And these all can be parented to the master control. And for the locators, as we don't need to have them visible anymore, we can go in and change the local scale to 0, and we can go one arrow down, so we have the shape, set the shape to template, so we can't select them either. And that should be it for the legs. Up next would be the spine.